Welcome to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan.
Hello everyone, welcome to COB. My name is Sudeep.
And I'm Sharan.
Welcome to another episode. Now Sharan, I am intrigued by the topic for today. Usually people launch innovations to succeed in the market. You picked a topic which said why innovations fail. Are you trying to put some kind of black magic or voodoo on every innovation that everybody puts in the market?
It's a bit of a peeve that was actually triggered by a client interaction. See, just that I've worked a little extensively in innovation in FMCG across countries, companies, categories also. But the system is so flawed, and it's even the simplest of innovations take about 18 to 24 months to launch from conception, which I think is almost ridiculous.
Well, it is a long timeline for sure. And I've also seen this from very close quarters. So now, suppose let's go with the timeline.
Okay.
And let's assume that the timeline allows rigor. The question is, despite all of this rigors, why do innovation fail?
That's the whole point, right? Because 90% of innovations still fail because despite the rigor, or so I'll put it within quotes, the rigor that goes into research that happens before an innovation is launched in the market. And it's very common in FMCG, but it's not just for FMCG. I'm sure across categories, across sectors, also the same thing holds true.
Correct. But, let's delve deeper. Why does this happen? What do you think?
I have two main reasons why this happens.
Okay.
One is because there is absolutely no way to create actual market reality for you to simulate and see how the product is going to work in a market. There are different tests, there are bases, there are CUTs, but it just doesn't replicate the in-market experience for the customer. So you can never take that at face value. And the customer is not very articulate. They end up answering what they think we want to hear. So most market research has a higher chance of failure than success, in my opinion. But the other one is that a lot of leaders hide behind research. They use complicated multiple researches and data to hide behind just in case an innovation becomes a failure. So I think these are the two main reasons why innovations fail.
Okay. Now, if these are the two reasons, possibly these are the reasons why innovations succeed also.
Well, it's interesting because when they succeed, then everybody's scrambling on top of each other to take credit for those successes. But you don't see the same scramble when something fails.
I can agree with that. That happens for a successful advertising also.
Exactly.
Okay, but let's get into some more specifics. So, can you assign some specific reasons that some of the listeners can then learn from for failure of innovations?
All right. The first one I'd say is lack of strategic fitment. So today, making something is so easy, and you always want to do something that is in your control, and you end up making a lot of products. And most of the time, this does not even align with your brand's infrastructure, for that matter. For example, there was this leading glass brand. I won't name them. You know who I'm talking about. And they have a glass ka adhesive, which is doing very well. It's sold in all the glass hardware stores. They have gone ahead and launched a multi-substrate adhesive and sealant, where they don't have distribution into stores which actually they sells it. What is the point of launching that product? And when they're up against companies like Pidilite, there's no chance they're going to win because the incumbent is so well penetrated in the market. And without penetration, you're not going to gain anything. Eventually, you're going to come back and say the product failed.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And, so therefore the core point of saying that it's not just about your brand, it is the infrastructure that the company has created, which can be ridden by the innovation to succeed. So if you don't have the right infra for it, you're already setting your innovation up for failure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the commonest peeves that we had, Sharan, in my time at Cadbury was the fact that usually chocolates are driven by weighted distribution. A big shop will sell maybe 10 times the chocolate of a small shop. But
Right.
for the confectionery brand that I was handling, numeric distribution was the name of the game. So you have to distribute a product to succeed. So our problem used to be that, for a company like Perfetti, when they launched an innovation, within about a month or 2 months, their sales team would take it to about 4-5 lakh stores easily. That number, I'm sure, has crossed 1 million now. But at the same time, we used to struggle there because bulk of our products like Bonvita, chocolates, etc., were top heavy. And that used to be one of our pet peeves when getting into an innovation. But yeah, I can really understand where you're coming from. Another one that I'll talk about, which is slightly on the same zone but comes from a brand point of view, Sharan, is where I've seen people or companies launching products which are just too far away from the core value or equity of their brand. Way back, I don't know, in 2011 or 12, I had gone to Phoenix Mills in Lower Parel, and I saw this car, very nice looking Japanese car by the name of Kizashi.
Kizashi. Okay.
Priced at 22 or 24 lakhs from
Wow.
the stable of Maruti Suzuki. Now, I'm sure it was a Suzuki car, good one at that. But Maruti brought it in, and those days Maruti, the most selling brand, which still is, was possibly Swift or Desire. That time, I don't think they had Desire, so it was somewhere around this. Yeah, understandably so, it didn't work. Yeah, for a consumer to believe for a car which they usually pay 5, 6, 7 lakhs for, to get a 25 lakh or 24 lakh kind of a car from the same stable was a problem for them. And many years later, now that I see, Maruti itself has created a separate dealership called Nexa for slightly more premiumized, slightly more stylized brands, because they realize that they need to change the stable where these offers are coming from.
Exactly. And I mean, the two famous examples that jump to your mind in line with what you're saying, I'm not even sure some of them are true. One was Pond's toothpaste.
Okay. Now, I've never heard of that.
Launched. Thankfully so, I think. And Colgate had launched a heat and eat pizza brand.
Okay. Not in India.
In the US. So these are two big famous case studies of horrible brand extensions.
Okay. Okay. I hope they are not true. This is just stories for their sake, but never mind. Okay. So now, so these are factors which are related to decisions that the company take vis-a-vis some external distribution or consumer visit. Are there internal factors also?
Oh, of course. The people who make these products. R&D is in love with whatever they make. Like anybody is, right? That's the IKEA effect. So when R&D comes up with an innovative product, they sell with all their heart to everybody within the company to go launch it. But what they fail to recognize is the actual consumer need. In fact, that responsibility still falls on marketing and the innovation team. But it's driven by the R&D team. I'll give you an example of what happened with me. I was leading innovation for international business at Godrej Consumer Products. And the R&D team had come up with a hair gel which would glow in the dark.
Oh, nice. I can't comment on category like hair gel, but okay. Yeah. So how did it go?
So this product was, it is just fascinating. It is just new, right? It's like the new kid with a toy. This is fascinating. And the thing is, we had no play in men's hair care in Indonesia. The only hair color version we had was a women's hair color that we just launched. But there was so much pressure to look at this product and get it to the market. And what happened there was, sometimes we look at, despite poor feedback, we are so excited. We're searching for the sparkles and say, this is actually the truth. We kind of massage the data to say, this is what we want. This is what the market would react.
So obviously, one part of internal is somebody having great conviction in a product despite consumers not really finding a great fit. What else? What else could be some of the other deeper issues?
The deeper issue is exactly the opposite of what I just mentioned. That companies misread consumer desires and become over reliant on data without actually talking to customers, especially in fashion oriented categories. You tend to follow trends. For example, Wow had launched the onion shampoo.
Nice. Okay.
Mama Earth also launched the onion shampoo. Every brand launched the onion shampoo. And not every brand worked. Because by the time the fourth brand launched, the trend was already over. So when you start following these trends and saying this is how it is going to be, without actually understanding what the data is trying to tell you, that also becomes a problem. Because the trends change faster than the data does, right?
Correct. That's true. In fact, for a little while, I was working in the art and craft category. I can tell you that a lot of the art and craft is also very trend driven. And the constant struggle was whether to follow the trend that has already reached Indian shores or to try and study influencers that might create a trend which will reach Indian shores in a few months from now. Sometimes the trend would last long enough for us to catch on to it, get our production right, get a quality product in and ride on it. Sometimes it wouldn't last so long and or it would fail to catch on and we would be left with unsold inventory. I think that's the nature of the game. That's how fashion industry also works. So you see clearance sales and all of that. But if you can budget for all of it, if you have a method to this madness, I'm sure you will see more successes than failure. Okay. So when all of this is happening and the company has few sane people like you on board for consulting, etc., it should become your moral responsibility to raise some of these flags or issues with them, right?
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm today a consultant and no longer an employee, for having raised too many flags within the system. But usually what happens is that nobody wants to disrupt the larger voice in the room. That leads to a lack of diverse perspectives in the system. And once everybody's in love with the product or with an idea, it just becomes a bit of an echo chamber where you're innovating for innovation's sake. It doesn't really have any consumer backing or business backing to it because somebody said so. You end up wanting to follow through. You're just following orders blindly. That's what happens most of the time.
Okay, fair. So now, which therefore should be much more truer for large, big companies. And I'm assuming this therefore leads to opportunities for startups and incumbents, right?
Absolutely. Because this is the Achilles heel of the large incumbent FMCG guys that the startup and the emerging businesses can actually take advantage of. Because they're agile, they are actually closer to the customer because they don't have the money to buy data. The only way, if you've listened to our previous episodes, is that you go and talk to customers. It keeps them a lot more grounded. And because they are a small organization, they can adapt a lot quickly and they can follow trends a lot faster than it would be for the larger companies to do. And they can avoid the larger pitfalls.
Fair. I agree to that. So now, we've spoken about lots of reasons, internal as well as external, that could lead to failure of innovations. Now, hence, if you were to, try to cull out some best practices that organizations can follow, both big and small, on how do they get their innovations right?
The companies need to be flexible in how they approach innovation. That's the first point, right? Because the existing process is pretty much dead. There's nothing coming out of it. Your hit rate is so low, and your frequency is so low of how you launch innovation from conception to launch. Now, you are anyway taking a risk because despite all the research you're doing, you still have a 90% fail rate. What could be worse than that? After investing so much money into research and capex, and you need to understand customers, you need to kind of understand the environment they're buying in, and you need to sell to them as you would in the market. And that's not going to happen in research. And all you need to do is to pilot launch. The faster you can pilot launch in a market, in a real market, see how customers are reacting to it, and then scale the brand from there. Basically, every company's innovation should behave like a startup within the system. Start small, scale big. Start small, scale big. And that's pretty much the only way to do it. And that's what we're working on, actually, interestingly, at Vitral. we're putting together an innovation model where FMCG businesses can go from ideation to launch within 3 months.
How can you do it in 3 months?
So what we're doing is we are doing the pilot launch. We are not waiting to get the P&L right. We are projecting the P&L, looking at what volumes it needs to hit, placing it in the right place, in the right markets, right retail environments, and watching what customers do and tweaking it in the market. So all you need you just need 3 months to go from ideation to launch.
So you're kind of doing a PMF by putting it in the market, and you're not innovating, you're prototyping.
Yes. That's pretty much it. Putting the prototype in the market is the only way to know how customers are going to react to it. Data can say all that it wants.
Okay. Interesting. Very good. So I think what we have spoken about thus far is that, despite all the rigor and concepts that we put, 90% innovations still fail, largely because of some issues which are in the external market that the companies fail to recognize, which is about consumers' believability of your offer, or the company's ability to get the infrastructure right for the innovation to succeed. And then there are internal issues where we get so obsessed by the product, or we get caught up in our own whirlwind to not get the innovation right. Your suggestion therefore is, be very flexible, be very agile, get to the market, test it out in the market rather than trying to simulate, because no amount of research gives you the right amount of data. And so therefore prototype, get it right, and keep getting it better. You will eventually get it right. And last but not the least, I must get paid for this, because if you don't get it right, please reach out to Vitral Innovation.
Yes, please do.
Thank you for listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's COBBCAST.net.